Back to Couch Casual today. We are going to be doing our final mock draft of the draft season. We're going to be doing a 2-round mock draft just so I get to do at least one pick for every team because not everybody has a first round pick, but every team at least has a second. So that's why we're going to be doing 2 rounds. We're not going to be doing any trades, unfortunately, in this mock draft, just because I feel like they're really hard to predict. But without further ado, let's get into our final official 2-round mock draft. I'm going to try and go through these picks a little bit faster here. First pick, obviously, it's Mendoza. We've been knowing this is the case. The draft really starts at pick 2. It's between Arvell Reese or David Bailey for what the Jets are going to do. I've said this before. I think that Arvell Reese makes the most sense at 2 for the Jets because he gives them that versatility to play linebacker as well on top of being a primary edge rusher, whereas a guy like David Bailey is just a primary edge rusher. And considering considering the Jets have a need at linebacker as well, not a major need, but they don't have the best linebacker room. I think Arvell Reese being able to give them some linebacker play as well makes it a better pick for the Jets, in my opinion. Now, the Cardinals at 3 seem like a very real possibility to trade back because I think the most likely guy to them is Mawanoa. But if they trade back with a team like the Commanders, a team like the Saints, a team like the Chiefs, or even the Cowboys, if they trade back with one of these teams, he'll likely be available, especially if they trade back with one of Commanders, Saints, or Chiefs. Because I think the first team that is going to take Mawanoa, or that could take him, would be the Giants at 10, and then maybe the Dolphins at 11. So I do think the Cardinals are going to trade back, but since we're not doing trades in this video, I'm going to obviously have the Cardinals stay at 3, and they're not going to take Mawanoa. I'm actually going to have them take David Bailey. Now, part of this is if the Cardinals were to trade back, the team that is likely trading up is trading up to draft David Bailey. So I at least have the third pick correct at 3. So that way it doesn't really mess up everything else. Because either I think the Cardinals take David Bailey at 3, or the team who trades up takes David Bailey at 3. Titans at 4, I'm going to keep this Jeremiah Love. Cam Ward needs a run game. I like Tyjae Spears. I like Tony Pollard. But Jeremiah Love, I think, is a step ahead of them, and I think he can be already as a rookie better than current Tyjae Spears and current Tony Pollard. Now, I know they need to work on their O-line, not only for Cam Ward, but also for Jeremiah Love. But I think they can do that later in the draft. You're not going to get Jeremiah Love later in the draft. So I like Jeremiah Love here, even over as well some of the defensive players like Ruben Bain or Sonny Styles. Giants at 5, I'm going to go Sonny Styles here. They really need help at linebacker. I think it's between one of the Ohio State guys, him, Downs, or Tate, because they need receiver next to Neighbors, they need safety, and they need linebacker. But I think Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs, I think, are the better of the 3. And I think linebacker is a bigger need for the Giants than safety, which is why I think they should go Styles here at 5. I don't think those other 2 make it to their 10th pick, but maybe in their mind they go Styles because they think that one of Downs or Tate could fall to them at 10. Browns at 6, I am going to have Carnell Tate here. Now, this is a mock draft of me trying to predict what teams do. Obviously, it's really difficult to predict what teams are going to do on the draft, especially I feel like in this draft. But I am going to try my best to actually predict what these teams do. I think the Browns go Carnell Tate here. Their receiver room isn't really great. It's really just Jerry Jeudy and some intriguing players outside of him / depth rotational receivers outside of him. It's not like Jerry Jeudy is some elite tier receiver. He's a good receiver, but him being your best receiver and clearly your best receiver is not the best case for an offense if you're Cleveland. And why not take the chance to add potentially the best receiver in the class, Carnell Tate? I think he's not only going to be the first receiver taken, but Ohio State receivers have had a pretty good track record in recent history, so I would trust picking Carnell Tate if I'm the Browns, just over a guy like Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson. Commanders at 7, I think this is between Caleb Downs, Ruben Bain, Mansour Delane, or Jordan Tyson. Because I think it seems like Jordan Tyson might actually be the second receiver taken over Makai Lemon. Because they really need help at receiver, right? It's just Terry McLaurin. Maybe they trade for Brandon Ayuk. Maybe Luke McCaffrey has an improved season. But it's really just Terry McLaurin. Safety. Their safety room was awful last year. They signed Nick Cross in the offseason, but they still need help alongside him. Mansour Delane, their corners aren't that great, and their edge rushers, they did sign Odafe Owe from the Chargers, and they signed Kayvon Chason from the Patriots. But Ruben Bain is still an upgrade over Chason, at least. I think Chason's like 1-year deal, so it's not like he's a long-term commitment for them. He is on. I still think he's he's on the younger side, just because he wasn't drafted. He was drafted in the first round not too long ago. But I don't think they go Ruben Bain. I'm gonna predict. This might be more leaning towards me thinking what they should do, but I'm gonna go Caleb Downs to the Commanders at 7. I think he's clearly the best player left on the board. I think him and Jeremiah Love are arguably talent-wise the two best players in the draft. They're just not at the most premier positions. Safeties don't get drafted super high. Running backs don't often get drafted super high. But I think they are arguably the two best players in the class, talent-wise. And the Commanders, again, they signed Nick Cross, but they still need a guy next to Nick Cross because their safety room is still not that great. Caleb Downs is the best safety in the class, potentially the best defensive player in the entire class. I think this is personally a no-brainer for the Commanders at 7. But I could very well see them going with Tyson or Delane or Bain, or even, again, maybe even Makai Lemon as well. Saints at 8. Ruben Bain, I think, is a possibility. I think Mansour Delane's a possibility, and I also think Jordan Tyson's a possibility. Because their edge rushers right now are Carl Granderson, Chase Young. Again, not horrible, but definitely could use upgrades. Their cornerback room is really just Kool-Aid McKinstry in terms of guys you really like. And then the receiver room is just Chris Olave. And I think they believe in Tyler Shough. Tyler Shough showed a lot of promise last year towards the end of the season. And I think you want to build around him and add some offensive weapons around Chris Olave to make Chris Olave's life easier and to make Tyler Shough's life easier. You already got a good O-line. You paid Travis Etienne or Travis Achan in the offseason. You need some receivers. They also could use some tight ends too, but they definitely need some receiver help. So I'm going to go Jordan Tyson to the Saints at 8. Chiefs at 9. It's between Mansour Delane and Ruben Bain, I think. I'm going to go Ruben Bain strictly because they have the 29th pick from the Trent McDuffie trade. And I think Delane and Ruben Bain are very similar in terms of like ranking. However, I think there's going to be a lot better corners available at their 29th pick than there will be edge rushers. So I think it makes sense to get the edge rusher now and then get a corner later in the draft versus taking Delane now and potentially reaching a little bit on an edge rusher, where I think they can get good value at corner later, hence why I think they should take Ruben Bain. Now, Giants at 10 is in a very interesting spot because Tyson's off the board, Caleb Downs is off the board, Carnell Tate is off the board. They already got their linebacker in Sonny Styles, so they don't need to go linebacker here. I think it's between Francis Mawanoa, because he played right tackle in college, and they have Andrew Thomas as their left tackle. They don't really have a solidified right tackle. Right, the Evan Neal experiment didn't work out. Could go Mansour Delane. Right, they lost some corners. They lost Cordell Flott in free agency, so you could add a cornerback and go Mansour Delane. Or you could go Makai Lemon at receiver to help out Malik Neighbors. But I actually don't hate their receiver core outside of Neighbors. I think safety, linebacker, and O-line and even corner is a much more important need for them than receiver, especially with Carnell Tate. If Carnell Tate was on the board, I'd take him right here at 10, but he's not on the board. So I'm actually going to go with Mawanoa here at 10. We have seen that when these teams invest in their young quarterback by building the offensive line, it has showed to help. Caleb Williams, Bryce Young are two examples that come to mind. When you have a young quarterback and you can build on that O-line it can make a huge difference. So I think the Giants should invest in Jackson Dart, build around that O line, add Mawanoa, have him, Andrew Thomas as your two franchise tackles for years to come. So this is another thing. I think the Giants should take Mawanoa, and I think the only other option here would be Mansour Delane. Miami is up at 11. I think once again Mansour Delane is in play here as the best corner in the entire class, actually. But I also think O line is in play for Miami here. Because honestly, Miami needs everything. The only position they don't need is halfback. I guess quarterback too. They could go QB, but I think with the signing of Malik Willis, maybe they get a quarterback like Nussmeier or Carson back in like the 5th round. But in terms of early picks, they're not looking QB and they're not looking running back. They could literally draft any other position, right? They could go receiver, they could go O line, they could go corner, they could go edge rusher, they could go safety, they could take a lot of things. I think it's between Mansour Delane at corner or Spencer Fano at tackle. Now, he played tackle in college. It seems like he might switch over to guard. However, he played left tackle in his freshman year. His sophomore and junior year, he played right tackle, and he might play guard in the NFL. It's a pretty versatile offensive lineman. And for a team that could use a lot on the O-line, I think getting a versatile lineman like Spencer Fano is too hard to pass up on. So I think Miami goes Spencer Fano out of Utah as that future guard that could also maybe give you some tackle games at tackle if injuries need you to do so. Dallas at 12, I think this is a no-brainer with how the board has fallen. I think they go Mansour Delane. They would obviously love linebacker, and maybe if the Giants don't take Sonny Styles, they trade up with the Browns to take Sonny Styles. Maybe they try and trade up with the Cardinals to jump the Giants for Sonny Styles, or even trade with the Titans to jump the Giants. But without trades and the Cowboys sticking at 12, without Downs on the board, I don't know why they would take Downs, but basically without Sonny Styles on the board, I think Delane's the easy pick here. Yet, ever since Trayvon Diggs and DaRon Bland had their really good seasons, the Dallas Cowboys had not really had a lot of great play from their corners. And Mansour Delane is the best corner in the draft, with great value in my opinion at 12, because he could go as early as 7, I think, is the earliest we could see Delane. So getting it at 12, I think is a great value pick for the Cowboys. Rams at 3, I'm going to go Makai Lemon. It seems like they really love Makai Lemon. He's their guy, right? Linebacker and receiver are their two biggest positions in need. I think 13 is a little high for a guy like CJ Allen, but I think 13 is great for a guy like Makai Lemon. Because in terms of their receiver room, yeah, you got Davante Adams, but outside of Puka Nacua, you don't really have any young receivers that you like on the Rams that you really trust to be on your team for the next 10 years. It's really just Puka. So you're going to have to not only add a receiver alongside him and Davante, but once Davante Adams is gone, you're going to need that guy next to Puka, and I think that is Makai Lemon. Ravens at 14, I think this is another easy pick for Baltimore. I'm going to go with Vega Ione out of Penn State. Their guard room is not very good. They also lost Tyler Linderbaum, so their interior of the O-line as a whole is not that great. And Vega Ione is the best true guard, like the best out of college players. He's the best guard from college. Again, Fano might play guard, who knows? But in terms of he played guard at college, Vega Ione is the clear best player, and it fills a very big position of need for Baltimore. And also without Makai Lemon or Jordan Tyson on the board, because they could go receiver too. Without those guys on the board, the next best receiver is Omar Cooper. I think Ione makes a lot more sense at 14 than Omar Cooper does. So I'm going to have the Ravens take Mr. Vega Ione. Buccaneers at 15 is a very interesting pick here. They could go a few different directions. I think they could go Kenyon Sadiq at tight end, even though they did extend Cade Otton. They could go corner and add a guy like Jermon McCoy. They could go linebacker and get a guy like CJ Allen. Or they could go with pass rusher and get a Mesidor or a Keldrick Folk. Because their pass rushers, it's really just, I think it's Yaya Diaby And they had Hassan Reddick, I think, last year, but I don't know if he's back on the team or not. They don't got a lot of edge rush. They really don't. They don't got a lot of pass rush in Tampa. The reason why they might pass on a guy like Mesidor is to maybe get some of the other really good pass rushers in the second round, like a R. Mason Thomas, a Gabe Jackas, a Malachi Lawrence. Right, so that would be the reason to pass on a guy like Mesidor and go with Sadiq or McCoy. I don't think they need tight end because, again, they extended Cade Otton. I think they extended him for a reason. They also extended him for like 3 years, too. I know I've had them go with Sadiq before, but I'm starting to think it doesn't make too much sense for them to go Sadiq. And then McCoy, I still don't know what's going on with Jermon McCoy and this injury. Like, is his stock staying the same? Has he recovered his stock? Is it going up? Is it going down? I'm not really sure. So I am gonna go with Akeem Mesidor. I think edge rusher is the biggest position of need for them, even though they could get some great value guys in the second round. One, their second round pick is 46. There's no guarantee that those guys are available for them at 46. But I feel like just addressing your potential biggest position in need with a really good player like Mesidor, I think might make them lean towards taking him. Jets at 16. They went ahead and got Arvell Reese at pick 2. I think my pick is going to be Omar Cooper out of Indiana. The receiver room is really just Garrett Wilson and nothing else. You need to give whoever your quarterback's going to be, whether it's who is their current quarterback. Didn't they trade for Geno? I think they did. I think their quarterback right now is Geno Smith. He's not your future, obviously. Right? And I just saw a report that they might not be looking at getting a guy like Ty Simpson later in the draft, and they're going to look towards 2027 as their quarterback year. But regardless of who your quarterback of the future is, he needs somebody to throw the ball to that's not named Garrett Wilson. And Omar Cooper is the best receiver on the board. I think this is a great pick for the Jets. Could go pass rusher, right, with Keldrick Folk. They could go with a corner after trading away Sauce Gardner and get a Jermon McCoy. I know they got Arvell Reese, but again, I think they can double up on pass rusher here. But I think getting some extra playmakers for your future quarterback is the smart move here at 16, especially because you already got your pass rusher. If this was their first pick, I'd take one of the pass rushers. But because they got Arvell Reese with the second pick, I don't think it's crazy to go Omar Cooper here at 16. Lions at 17, I think this is an easy pick. I think it's got to be Monroe Freeling out of Georgia. Right, they got their right tackle solidified with Penei Sewell, one of the best tackles in all of football, one of the best linemen in all of football. Monroe Freeling, a guy who played left tackle his last 2 years of college, has kind of risen up the boards a little bit recently. And the reason I like this pick to Detroit, one, it's a huge position of need, and he's one of the best players available. I think Detroit was at their best when they gave Jared Goff a really good O-line, and when that O-line started to get hurt, not play as great, get older, that's when the Lions did not play that great. Right, they only won 9 games this year, which technically was enough to finish last in the division, which is crazy. But that's regardless of that. I just think with need, track record with what the Lions have done well with, which is O-line, that's when they've been at their best, and that he's just one of the best players, it makes perfect sense. Vikings at 18, it seems like if Tianneman is on the board, the Vikings will draft Dylan Tianneman, safety out of Oregon. He's their Harrison Smith replacement. Very good safety, probably the best safety outside of Caleb Downs. It's a very big position of need for them. Secondary as a whole, I think, is an area Minnesota could address here in the draft. And Tianneman's one of the better players available. I'm pretty sure it's a heavily rumored pick. Like if he's on the board, they're taking him. Tianneman to the Vikings at 18. And another Oregon player is going to go at 19. The Panthers are going to take Kenyon Sadiq. They have one of the worst tight end rooms in the league. They got a bunch of okay tight ends, but they don't have a standout guy. And Kenyon Sadiq being the best tight end in the draft, I think he easily has potential to be a standout tight end and actually be a tight end one and actually elevate the Panthers tight end room instead of just adding more depth to it. So I like Sadiq for the Panthers at 19. Next, we have the Cowboys at 20. This is an interesting spot because linebacker is a huge position in need, right? And they weren't able to get Sonny Styles. They ended up with Delane at 12. So C.J. Allen is definitely in play here to Dallas. But I think they go pass rusher. And I'm going to go Keldrick Folk out of Auburn. I know you have Donovan Ezeraku, who had a decent rookie year, I'm pretty sure. You trade for Rashawn Gary. But I don't think that should stop you from taking a very good quality pass rusher in Keldrick Folk. You still need your you still need your Micah Parsons replacement. Is it Ezeraku? Is it Rashawn Gary? Who knows? But I think it has to be defense. Obviously, they have to address defense. And I don't think they need D tackle, right? You have Quinn Williams, who you traded for, and you have Kenny Clark, who you got in the Micah Parsons trade. I think their edge rush room is worse than their D tackle room. You already got your corner. I think Keldrick Folk just makes more sense than a guy like C.J. Allen at linebacker. Pittsburgh at 21 is an interesting spot here. Obviously, quarterback is a big need for them, but Ty Simpson doesn't seem to make sense here at 21. Maybe they trade back and get Ty Simpson at a better value spot. Maybe they trade back up into the first round or close to the first round to get a guy like Ty Simpson. Maybe they don't take a quarterback at all and they believe in Will Howard. Or maybe they wait and get a guy like Nussmeier or Drew Aller or Carson Beck or Kate Klubnik or something like that. So I don't think QB's in play here if we're not doing trades. I know they drafted tackle in the last 2 first rounds, but I really think tackle is still in play for Pittsburgh. And you have 4 very good first-round worthy tackles in Blake Miller, Caden Proctor, Max Ionacher, and Caleb Lomu. All these guys could very likely be first-round picks. And it's honestly just take your pick of the 4 if you're Pittsburgh. I am going to go Blake Miller here because I think they need right tackle slightly more than left tackle. So I'm going to go Blake Miller out of Clemson to Pittsburgh. Chargers at 22. It's an interesting spot for the Chargers at 22. Obviously, you would have loved Vega Ione to be on the board for them, but he went to Baltimore at 14 because that's probably their biggest need is interior offensive linemen. So if we're going away from interior offensive linemen, they could go safety and get a guy like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. They could go D-line and go with McDonald, Banks, Peter Woods. They could go receiver to pair alongside McConkey and Quentin Johnston and get a guy like Denzel Boston or Casey Conception. However, I think a position of need for the Chargers that not many people, at least this website's not talking about, is edge rusher. You have Tuli Tuipulotu, who had a great year last year, and he's a young, promising, improving player. But next to him, it's Khalil Mack currently, who we don't know how many years left Khalil Mack has. Right? He was a free agent this year. They brought him back. But I don't know how much longer he's going to be not only on the team, but in the league. And I think you need to think for the future and get your Khalil Mack replacement. So I think they look pass rusher here. It's honestly a coin toss between Cassius Howell or TJ Parker. I'll just go TJ Parker here at 22 to the Chargers. But again, it could be Cassius Howell or him. I also tried to look at visits, like top 30 visits and workouts and pro days to try and get an idea of what players these teams are interested in. Philly at 23. I also think this is a tackle spot, right? Because you got Jordan Mailata at left tackle. And then at right tackle, it's Lane Johnson, who was injured last year. He's getting up there in age. Same thing how the Chargers don't really know how much longer they have Khalil Mack for. We don't know how much longer the Eagles are going to have Lane Johnson. And I think similar to the Lions, how you saw when the Lions O-line wasn't as consistent as it has been in previous years, their offense kind of took a step down. I think when Philly's O-line, or when Philly's offense was at its worst, was when Lane Johnson wasn't out there. And you can't rely on Lane Johnson to be there forever. I think you look towards the future, get your Lane Johnson replacement. Caden Proctor is probably the best tackle remaining, but he plays left tackle, so you'd have to have him switch over to right tackle or play guard. But I think a true right tackle is what they need the most, not a tackle who can play guard. So I'm going to have him go with Max Ionacher out of ASU, who did play right tackle in college, to be that Lane Johnson replacement. Browns at 24, they got Carnell Tate at pick 6. This has been rumored as a a match for them. Like, they really like this guy, and that's Caden Proctor. So I'm going to have him go to the Browns at 24. They honestly could maybe trade. Like, they could make a trade with Dallas, I think I've seen, and get pick 12 and maybe pick 20 and go with Proctor there. But if they stay at 24, I think Proctor can still make it to them at 24. They really like Proctor. They really need help on the O-line. I think they should invest all their picks in the first round on offense because their defense is actually pretty good. Their O-line really needs help. So I'm going to go with Caden Proctor. Bears at 25. Now, I've consistently given the Bears Caden McDonald because I think D tackle is one of the biggest positions in need. Interior D tackle. Their best guy is the older Grady Jarrett, right? They need help at that D tackle spot. However, a position need that I haven't thought of yet for the Bears until recently is safety. And there's this guy by the name of Emmanuel McNeill-Warren from Toledo, who's a pretty good safety, right? Because they had C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Jaquan Brisker as their two safeties last year. Both were free agents. They lose both of them. They do bring in Kobe Bryant from Seattle, but they didn't really address that safety position next to Kobe Bryant. And I think that safety next to Kobe Bryant can be Emmanuel McNeill-Warren. So I'm going to have McNeill-Warren going to the Bears at 25. Because there's a lot of good D tackles in this class. I think they have 2 second-round picks because of the DJ Moore trade. I think they can easily find a good D tackle later in the draft. So I'm going to have them go with McNeill-Warren at safety. Buffalo at 26. Receiver had been a popular pick here, but with the DJ Moore trade, they don't need receiver as much, at least in the first round. I think it's between C.J. Allen at linebacker or one of the pass rushers. And I'm actually going to go with C.J. Allen at linebacker because I think it's very good value to get C.J. Allen at pick 26. I feel like he could go as early as Dallas at pick 20. Maybe even the Panthers can take him at pick 19. Who knows? Maybe even Tampa Bay takes him at pick 15. So getting him at pick 26, I think, is great value for Buffalo. They need help at that linebacker position, right? They had a lot of great linebackers who have kind of gotten older now, aren't necessarily their same player, or might not even be on the team anymore, mainly Matt Milano. They need that next guy. They got Terrell Bernard, I think is his name, who's a pretty good linebacker, but you normally need 2. So I like C.J. Allen at 26 over one of the pass rushers. San Fran at 27. I think we see another one of the top tackles go. There's actually only one left. It's Caleb Lomu. I know they extended Trent Williams. They gave him, I think, a 2-year extension not too long ago. However, he's still like 38 years old. So he's probably going to play that extension out. And then I wouldn't be surprised if he retires because he might be 40 by the time that extension's over. I'm not sure exactly how old he is. But similar to Philly, similar to the Chargers, they have a good player at the position they're drafting in, but I think they need to think future and go with a tackle. They could go pass rusher because the Michael Williams pick might not have been the best pick. Didn't have the best rookie year. So maybe you want someone else alongside Nick Bosa that's not Michael Williams. I think they can not only go pass rusher later, but I think they should, in my opinion, give Michael Williams at least another year, maybe actually playing with a healthy defense. Michael Williams can have a better season. So I'm going to go with Lomu here as their future Trent Williams replacement. Houston at 28. I think this has to be D tackle. I'm going Caden McDonald. Their biggest position need is probably on that interior line. I don't know if you go with Emmanuel Pregnon here at 28. And if you don't go interior line, their next biggest position in need is D tackle. And with how many good D tackles are on the board, McDonald, Banks, Woods, Miller, Hunter, I think getting the number 1 guy out of all of them is smart for Houston because while their defense is really good, that one weakness would be their interior D-line. Chiefs at 29, they went ahead and got Ruben Bain at 9. And the reason I said earlier is because I think there will be good corners available. And Jermon McCoy, somehow I made him fall to 29. I don't think his injury is that serious. I don't think he'll actually fall to 29. But honestly, if he doesn't go to Tampa at 15, there's not a lot of teams I think that need corner ahead of the positions that I had him take. But he falls right into the Chiefs' lap at 29. So if that injury concern is there, I think if that injury causes him to fall to 29, I think it's a good risk to take if you're Kansas City. Miami at pick 30, they got Fanu to play just O-line. They got an O-lineman, we'll say that. Now that they got their offensive lineman, I think it's between corner with Avion Terrell or receiver with Conception or Denzel Boston. And I think they just go best player, which is Avion Terrell. So I think corner and receiver are equal in terms of positions in need for Miami. I don't think their cornerback room is much better than the receiver room, even though they both need help. I think they're very similar in terms of need. So just go with the best player, and I think that's Avion Terrell. New England at 31. Now, it seems like they're going to trade for A.J. Brown. That's the report, that they finalized a trade for A.J. Brown to happen after, I think, June 1st is the day. So if that's the case, they don't need receiver. You got Kayshon Boutte, Kyle Williams, A.J. Brown. I think they signed Romeo Doubs. It's a pretty good receiver room. All right, you don't need to address receiver at that point. They could go tackle, but all the first-round tackles are gone, and the next guy is Dunker, who might actually even play guard in the NFL. Caleb Tiernan, Markel Bellerick. There's no tackles at 31. They've all went. Once Momu got picked to San Fran, New England wasn't going to go tackle here. Could go D-line, right? There's a lot of good interior D-linemen on the board. There's a lot of good edge rushers on the board, too. Because they do need edge rushers, especially after losing Chason to Washington in free agency. I definitely could see them going pass rushers, and the best player on the board, at least according to PFF, is a pass rusher. So that's where we're going to go. We're going to go Cassius Howell out of Texas A&M, the best player on PFF's board. Very good pass rusher. New England needs pass rush help. They could also have taken Zion Young here, too. I could see that, but we'll go with Cassius Howell. And then Seattle at 32. Another team that could go pass rusher and go with a Zion Young. But I think corner is a big need for Seattle, right? You have Devon Witherspoon. You re-signed Josh Jobe after he hit free agency. They brought him back. But they did lose Tariq Woolen. And that's a big hole there at that third corner. And Colton Hood is here at 32, which I think is a good value pick. So I'm going to go with Colton Hood to Seattle at 32. Now we have the Jets at 33. Starting off round 2, they got Arvell Reese. They got Omar Cooper. I was thinking they should probably go Ty Simpson here at 33, but it does seem like they might hold off on quarterback till next year's draft, so maybe he ends up going to a team like the Cardinals. And if the Jets aren't going to take him, where else could they go, right? They don't need a receiver necessarily because they got Omar Cooper. They don't need a pass rusher necessarily because they got Arvell Reese. It says they need corner, and you do got a guy like Brandon Siss, D'Angelo Pons, Chris Johnson, who are all intriguing enough cornerback prospects. But another position of need for them is D tackle. Right, you trade away. I know they traded for T'Vondre Sweat, but you trade away Quinnen Williams. But I think I am going to go with Chris Johnson at corner. I think they like Chris Johnson. I think they might have brought him in for a visit. I'm not sure. But after trading away Sauce Gardner, they don't really have a lot at that cornerback position. So I like Chris Johnson there. Which means the Cardinals at 34 are going to go with Ty Simpson out of Alabama. Their quarterback room is Gardner Minshew and Jacoby Brissett, I'm pretty sure. Now, maybe they want to look towards next year's draft just like the Jets potentially want to do. But someone has to take Ty Simpson. And if the Jets don't do it, I think the Cardinals do it. They could very well trade up to jump the Jets if they think the Jets want Ty Simpson. But without trades and without the Jets taking Ty Simpson, he falls to the Cardinals at 34. Titans at 35. We didn't have them go O-line with their 4th pick, right? They went Jeremiah Love. However, they need to help out Jeremiah Love as well as Cam Ward. And they need some help on that interior, so I'm going to go Chase Bizantis out of Texas A&M, just over Emmanuel Pregnon out of Oregon. I think you could argue either one goes first between the two. But I think they need to address that guard position, that O-line position as a whole. You need to keep Cam Ward upright no matter who you have at receiver. You need to give Jeremiah Love the ability to be Jeremiah Love and get some good run blocking. So I like Chase Bazantes at A&M. It was him or one of the pass rushers, but I think, again, as I mentioned before, helping out your young quarterback with O-line, I think, is critical. So I think they should prioritize the O-line over a guy like Zion Young. Raiders at 36. They got, obviously, Mendoza at pick 1. I think receivers in play here with Boston and Conception still on the board, two guys that potentially could go in the first round, still being here at 36. I think D-line's a possibility with Caleb Banks and Peter Woods still being here. But I think you got to help out your quarterback. You got to help Mendoza out. It kind of sucks that they can't get Omar Cooper because that would be fun, but he went 20 picks ago, and you're not going to take Elijah Surratt. So unfortunately, the Raiders can't pair Mendoza with one of his college receivers. However, you can give him some elite speed in KC Conception. I think his speed and his athleticism might have him getting taken higher than a guy like Denzel Boston, and his return ability too. I think, as I said before, might have him go just slightly ahead of Denzel Boston for that reason. Some of the Raiders take KC Conception. Giants at 37. They got Sonny Styles and Francis Mawanoa with their first round picks. Safety is a big need for them. However, you're not taking AJ Halsey at pick 37. They need linebacker, but they got Sonny Styles. They need O-line, but they got Mawanoa. Receivers in play with a guy like Denzel Boston here. Could pair him alongside Malik Neighbors. However, after trading away Dexter Lawrence, their D tackle room is not good at all. Like it's one of the worst D tackle rooms in all of football because of the trade of Dexter Lawrence. And Caleb Banks and Peter Woods are still available at 37. I think it's a no-brainer you take one of these two guys. Which one do you take over the other? Another coin flip. I'm just going to go Peter Woods to the Giants at 37. I think, didn't Dexter Lawrence play at Clemson? I could be wrong here. I want to say he played at an orange school. Now he's playing for the Bengals, which is... He did go to Clemson. So the last Clemson D-tackle the Giants took worked out pretty well. So why not go another with Peter Woods? Texans at 38. They went ahead and got Caden McDonald at 28. I think Emmanuel Pregnon has to be the pick here at 38, right? Their biggest need is interior line. They weren't able to get one with their first-round pick because it just didn't make sense. But with Emmanuel Pregnon on the board here, it makes a lot more sense. And they need to help C.J. Stroud out with that O-line because it was not good last year. And Emmanuel Pregnon at 38 is pretty good value. Browns at 39. They went ahead and got Caden Proctor and Carnell Tate with their 2 first-round picks. Now, a guy I like for the Browns is Jennings Dunker. Because they got Caden Proctor who could play left tackle. Dunker at college played right tackle. However, it seems like he's going to go to guard in the NFL. But you know what the Cleveland Browns need? The Cleveland Browns need some guard help. So why not go a guy like Jennings Dunker who can be a guard for you primarily. But if you need him to play tackle, he can play tackle because he plays a different side of the ball than Caden Proctor. They really need to help out on that. They really need help on that O-line. So I like Jennings Dunker to the Browns at 39. Chiefs at 40. They got Ruben Bain and Jermon McCoy that addressed their 2 biggest positions of need, which are edge and corner. And outside of that, what's the next position they could use? The web PFF says receiver. I also agree that they need receiver. So I'm going to go Denzel Boston to the Chiefs at 40. I think tight end is a position they should look at, but the next best tight end is Eli Stowers, who I don't think they're going to take at 40. They could go D-line. Interior D-line isn't a crazy position for Kansas City to take. I think with a guy like Denzel Boston on the board, it would be hard for the Chiefs to pass up on him. Bengals at pick 41, their first pick of the draft because they traded their first round pick for Dexter Lawrence. So it says they need D tackle, but they probably don't need D tackle anymore because they got one of the best in the league. So if you're not going D tackle, again, I think it's got to be defense. Could go O line here, but the Bengals, we know how bad their defense is. They got to go defense. Again, they don't need any of these top D linemen because they got one of the top D linemen in the NFL, Dexter Lawrence. Could go pass rusher to replace Trey Hendrickson. You signed Odafe Owe, but we don't really know how much they believe in Shamar Stewart, so maybe you want to get his replacement next to Odafe, or not Odafe Owe, Boye Mafe. Could look at corner, right? They lost Cam Taylor-Britt free agency, so maybe you want a Brandon Sish or D'Angelo Pons. But I'm actually going to go Jacob Rodriguez at linebacker. Right now, their linebackers are Barrett Carter and Demetrius Knight. But Jacob Rodriguez was really good in college, and I think teams are going to really like Jacob Rodriguez. I think 41 is great value. I feel like he could get picked a lot higher just because of how good he was in college. And the Bengals really need help at linebacker and just defense as a whole. I think they should take the best defensive player available, but with the three best defensive players all being D tackles and then just trading for a D tackle, I think you look elsewhere for one of the better defensive players. And I think Rodriguez is right there. And I think he makes sense at 41. New Orleans at 42, they went with Jordan Tyson at pick 8. They need D tackle help. So I'm going to have them go with Caleb Banks out of Florida. Right, they have Brian Bursey, who they took not too long ago. He's been all right. He's shown some flashes, right, as most young players not drafted in like the top 10 tend to do. But whether you believe in him or not, you need somebody next to him if he's your long-term answer. And again, with how good of D tackles that are still available, I don't know if that sentence made sense or not. I think it makes sense for New Orleans to go D tackle. Miami at 43, they got their lineman Spencer Fano and Avion Terrell with their 2 first-round picks. So they could go receiver, right? They do need help at receiver. Both Denzel Boston and Casey Conception are off the board. So maybe you don't want Chris Bell at 43. You do, that is your only second-round pick, is 43. So maybe they go Chris Bell here. But I think they lean towards pass rusher and go with Zion Young. I think Zion Young could potentially be a first-round pick or a really early second-round pick. So for him to fall all the way to 43. And I'm also pretty sure Miami has like 4 third-round picks. You can get a really good receiver with those 4 first-round picks. Or third-round picks. I'd rather draft a receiver in the third round than an edge rusher. So I'm prioritizing edge rusher in the second round over receiver if I'm Miami. And with a guy like Zion Young still on the board at 43, I think it's a no-brainer. Dallas, the Jets are up at 44. They got Arvell Reese, Omar Cooper, and Chris Johnson. That covers all their big needs outside of quarterback. But they're probably not going to go QB. If they wanted to go QB, they would have taken Ty Simpson at 33. So if you're not going QB here, what else do the Jets need? I know they traded for T'Vondre Sweat, but they could go D tackle. They're not going to go another corner. They're probably not going to go receiver. They're probably not going to go pass rusher. Honestly, they don't really need a lot of these top positions, right? Because they already took a corner. They already took a receiver. They already took an edge rusher, receiver, corner, edge. The only different position that they haven't taken that's not a D lineman is safety AJ Halsey. But I think they need D line. Get another guy next to T'Vondre Sweat. So I'm gonna go D tackle here. Coin toss between these two: Lee Hunter or Christian Miller. I'll go Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech to the Jets at 44. Ravens at 45. They went and got Vega Ione at 14. So that covers their interior O-line need that they have. I think their next biggest position need is receiver. I'm going to go Chris Bell out of Louisville as the next best receiver on the board, in my opinion. And that's the next biggest need it's the biggest need for the Ravens once they take Vega-Ione, they then need to address that receiver room and get a guy outside of Zay Flowers. So you go Chris Bell at 45. Tampa Bay at 46. They went and got Mesidor at 15. See, this is the issue, though, with taking Mesidor. R. Mason Thomas is here at 46. So they maybe could have taken a guy like Jermon McCoy or Kenyon Sadiq and waited for R. Mason Thomas, but I did have them go pass rusher with Mesidor. So instead, at 46, they could go corner and go with a Brandon Siss, a D'Angelo Pons. I'm actually going to have them go Christian Miller at D tackle. I think they either have brought in Miller for a visit or they brought in other D tackles to potentially show interest in taking a D tackle. They need a guy next to Vita Vea. Christian Miller is very good, a guy that maybe could go a lot higher than 46. And according to PFF, he was the best defensive player on the board, which I think should be the side of the ball that Tampa Bay addresses with their first two picks, unless they go Kenyon Sadiq. Colts at 47. This is their only pick here because they don't have their first round pick. They could go D tackle, but without Christian Miller on the board, the next best D tackle is Grayson Halton, who I don't know if you want to take here at 47. They could go receiver and get a Jeremy Bernard or even a Chris Brazell, Skylar Bell, because it's really just Josh Downs and Alex Pierce at receiver for Indy. But I think they should address the defense at linebacker or safety. And you got safety, you got AJ Halsey, and then at linebacker, you have Jack Golday. It's between Golday and Halsey, in my opinion. I think it's another like coin toss of who you want to take. If you're the Colts here, AJ Halsey, or at least the PFF, is the better player, so maybe they just go best defensive player at a position they need, which is safety. So I'm going to go AJ Halsey out of LSU. They got Cam Bynum, who they signed last year in free agency. You need somebody next to him. I like AJ Halsey. Falcons at pick 48. Could go D-line, but similar with the Colts. With Miller off the board, there's not a D tackle you take here at this spot. So I think if you're not going D tackle, it's between receiver or corner for Atlanta. You got Brandon Siss if you go corner, or D'Angelo Pons. And then you got Jeremy Bernard if you go receiver. I think they've actually brought in Bernard for a visit, if I'm not mistaken. And their receiver room outside of Drake London is not that great, especially because they lost Darnell Mooney, or got rid of Darnell Mooney. So I'm going to go Jeremy Bernard out of Alabama to the Falcons at 48. Vikings at 49. They got Dylan Tieneman with their first round pick. Again, another team that could go D tackle, but there's not a D tackle worth taking at 49. So Tampa Bay taking Miller kind of ruins it for all three of these teams. Even the Lions could go D tackle. Even the Panthers could go D tackle. But Tampa Bay got the last remaining D tackle worth taking in the low 40s. So you're not looking D tackle for Minnesota or safety because AJ Halsey's off the board. I don't mind corner for them. Right, you got three really good corners in Sis, Pons, and Abney. I actually think running back is a big position of need for Minnesota. Right, you got Aaron Jones, who's a little bit older. You got Jordan Mason, who's just a solid, RB2 type guy, RB1B maybe, I don't know. But Jadarian Price is on the board. You can always get good running backs late in the draft. That's what it feels like. But I like Jadarian Price. I think it's good value for Minnesota at 49 to get an elite young running back in that room. And they can maybe move on from Aaron Jones at the deadline or after the season or something like that. Lions at 50. They got Monroe Freeling with their first round pick. I think pass rusher is very much in play, right? You need a guy next to Aiden Hutchinson, and R. Mason Thomas is here at 50. Could go corner and go with Sis, Pons, or Abney. They need a linebacker because they lost Alex Anzalone in free agency, so maybe look Jack Golday. I am going to go pass rusher 1. R. Mason Thomas, I think, is really good and good value at 50. Great value at 50. I think Tampa Bay could have taken him at 46. Maybe even the Jets could have taken him if they didn't take Arvell Reese. So I think not only is he great value at 50, but you need a guy next to Aiden Hutchinson, and with how injured this Lions D-line has gotten over recent years, at the end of the day, he could just be really good depth early on in his career. and then eventually become that really good pass rusher next to Aiden Hutchinson. Panthers at pick 51, they got Kenyon Sadiq at 19. Panthers are an interesting spot. Could go tackle here, but the next best tackle is Caleb Tiernan at Northwestern. Isn't the end of the world, right? If with the Ike Ekwonu injury and the age of Taylor Moton, I don't know if Tiernan makes sense at 51. I think if you go tackle, they would have taken a tackle with their 19th pick, not their 51st pick. So I don't think you will tackle. Could go receiver and get a guy like Chris Brazell or Skylar Bell. Could go trade in Stukes because they need safety / cornerback play. And Trayden Stukes played corner in college, but he's kind of like that hybrid corner safety build. Could look at him. Keontae Scott's also kind of that hybrid corner safety, so you could go with Keontae Scott here. But I think they really need linebacker help, and I'm going to go Jack Golday out of Cincinnati because you signed Devin Lloyd in free agency. Great pickup. Love the Devin Lloyd signing for the Panthers. But next to him, it's Trevin Wallace, and that's pretty much it. So I don't hate the Jack Golday pick at 51. I think AJ Halsey would have been a great pick for them. But obviously, he's off the board. And there's still some good safeties, right? You got Kamari Ramsey, who you could get later in the draft. So I don't mind looking linebacker for the Panthers. Packers at 52, they didn't have a first-round pick because of the Micah Parsons trade. They need corner. Their cornerback room is really, really bad. And Brandon Siss is... It's insane, honestly, that I had Brandon Siss fall all the way to 52, to be honest. I'd have him go as high as Seattle at 32. But he falls all the way to Green Bay at 52. They desperately, desperately need help at corner. Their best cornerback right now is Keyshawn Nixon. Not necessarily the most ideal situation, so I think Brandon Siss makes perfect sense for Green Bay at 52. Pittsburgh at 53, they got Blake Miller with their first-round pick. Keep investing in that O-line if you're Pittsburgh. I'm going Keelan Rutledge out of Georgia Tech. They need guard help just as much as they need tackle help, right? You're not going to take Ty. You could take Ty Simpson at 53, but unfortunately, he's off the board. You're not going to take Garrett Nussmeier in this spot, so why not continue to build that O-line forever your future quarterback is, whether it's Will Howard or someone you draft later this draft or even someone you take in next year's draft. They need help on the O-line. Could go receiver too because it's really just Metcalf and Michael Pittman. So I wouldn't mind a Skylar Bell pick here either. But I think you continue to invest in that line and go Keelan Rutledge. Eagles at pick 54, they got Max Ionacher at 23. I think this pick is either Gabe Jackas, Malachi Lawrence at edge rusher, or Eli Stowers at tight end. They brought in Eli Stowers in for a visit or they've done some research on Eli Stowers, whether it was a visit or a pro day or something like that. And they need their Dallas Goedert replacement because I'm pretty sure they only signed Dallas Goedert to a 1-year deal. So I'm going to go Eli Stowers out of Vanderbilt to the Eagles at 54. Because without, it's either that or edge rusher. Could go safety too and go with one of the hybrids in Stukes or Scott. But I think that tight end makes more sense. Because I think Keontae Scott and Stukes are more like that nickel role, right? That can play safety, that can play nickel corner. But the Eagles just signed Tariq Woolen, and they already have Cooper DeJean, who kind of plays that role as a corner safety hybrid, so I don't think they need to go there. So I think it's either edge rusher or tight end. I think Stowers makes the most sense and potentially is the most likely. Chargers at 55. They could actually use some safety help, so maybe they go with Trayden Stukes or Keontae Scott. They could go pass rusher, but again, with TJ Parker being their first-round pick, I don't think you'll look towards adding another pass rusher because you have Tuli Tuipulotu, so you don't need two pass rushers in this draft. At most, only one. D-tackle, again, is an interesting spot. Grayson Halton finally makes sense to draft Grayson Halton. Right? We didn't think it made sense for teams like Indy, Atlanta, or Minnesota, but it could make sense for the Chargers at 55. But I am going to go with one of the hybrid nickel safeties out of Scott or Stukes. I'm going to go Trayden Stukes to the Chargers at 55. They need some help at safety. And they could also use some help at corner too. Stukes can kind of play both. And he can learn from one of the best safety nickel hybrid type players in Derwin James playing alongside him probably can be very beneficial for a guy like Trayden Stukes. Jags at 56. This is their first pick of the draft because of the Travis Hunter trade. Their biggest position need is linebacker, in my opinion. You have Foyesade Oluokun and Devin Lloyd last year. You lose Devin Lloyd in free agency, and now it's really just Foyesade Oluokun. Could go tight end, but with Stowers off the board, I don't really like tight end here. Could go D-line, right, and go with a Grayson Halton or Dominic Orange. But I just think Devin Lloyd loss is so big that they need to address the linebacker position the most. So I'm going to go with Josiah Trotter out of Missouri to the Jags. The Bears at 57 went with Emmanuel McNeill-Warren with their first round pick. They do have pick 60 as well. I'm going to have them go with Mr. Caleb Tiernan out of Northwestern. Their current left tackle is Ozzie Trapelo, who they took recently out of Boise State. Not Boise State, Boston College. They could very well address the left tackle. Ozzie Trapelo, I don't know if is your future franchise left tackle. And not only can Caleb Tiernan play left tackle because he played it in college, but he's from Northwestern. Keep him in state with Chicago, at least in state for now, because they might move to Indiana for whatever reason. But if they stay in Chicago, Caleb Tiernan played college in Illinois. Why not keep him in Illinois if the Bears stay in Illinois? San Fran at 58. They got Caleb Lomu at tackle in their first round pick to be that Trent Williams replacement. Could go pass rusher here with Gabe Jackas and Malachi Lawrence on the board. Could go safety and get Keontae Scott. But I think they should address the receiver position. The receiver room is mainly Mike Evans and Ricky Pearsall because we don't expect Brandon Ayuk to be back, and I don't think Jawan Jennings is coming back. I think they even lost Kendrick Bourne, if I'm not mistaken. And there's two really good receivers here that you could take at 58 in Chris Brazell and Skylar Bell. I'm going to go Chris Brazell because he has a very similar build to a guy they just signed in free agency, Mike Evans. And Mike Evans is one of the best receivers in the league, at least like recently, like over the last 5 years, he's been one of the best receivers in the league. Why not add a guy very similar to learn from Mike Evans in Chris Brazell at 58? And he can play alongside him too because they just need overall receiver help as a whole. Houston at 59, they got Pregnon and McDonald with their first two picks. And you know what? We're going to keep that O-line improvement going. I'm going to go Connor Lew out of Auburn as the best center in the class. Houston definitely needs help at center. And why not take the best center in the entire draft at 59? You have to keep C.J. Stroud protected. When that O-line went downhill, so did C.J. Stroud. They got to keep C.J. Stroud's. They got to get C.J. Stroud back on track. And there's not a better place to start than building up that O-line, especially because you don't really need to add receivers. You have four very good receivers to really good receivers on your team already. The next biggest position to need on that offense is the O-line, and you get two in Pregnon and Connor Lew. Chicago at 60. They need D-tackle. I haven't gotten them a D-tackle. I went safety and offensive tackle with their first two picks. But luckily for Chicago, you got Grayson Halton and Dominic Orange, who both make perfect sense here at pick 60. And I am going to go with Dominic Orange because I'm pretty sure the Bears brought him in for a visit. So maybe they like him a little bit more than a Grayson Halton. But they really do need help at that D-tackle spot. And if you don't go with one of the top guys in the first, getting one of those two at 60 is great value. There's no need to take him at 57 because now I don't think Houston or San Fran will take Caleb Tiernan. But I also don't think they'll. If Houston takes McDonald or a D-tackle in the first, they're not taking a D-tackle. So the Bears can kind of just go with either one with 57 and 60. I went Tiernan at 57 and Orange at 60. Rams at 61. They went ahead and got Makai Lemon at 13. The Rams don't really need a lot, right? They're one of the best teams in the league, like roster construction-wise. Their big need going into the offseason was corner, but they addressed that by trading for Trent McDuffie and signing Jalen Watson. So when you do that, you don't really need corner. So their two needs are linebacker and receiver. They got the receiver, Makai Lemon, in the first round. Maybe this is a little bit of a reach, but again, the Rams don't really need a lot. But they do need a linebacker. Kyle Luis isn't, I don't think, a terrible reach at 61. Maybe it's not the best pick value-wise, but they really need help at linebacker. So I'm going to go with Kyle Luis out of Pitt. Broncos at 62. This is their first round pick because this is their first pick because they traded their first for Jalen Waddle. I am going to go with Grayson Halton out of Oklahoma. Another team that needs linebacker is Denver, but with the Rams taking Kyle Luis, I don't think there's a linebacker you take here at 62 if you're Denver. They really need help at D tackle alongside Zach Allen. They don't really have a lot next to him. And I think they like Grayson Hall, and they at least brought him in for a visit. Tight end's another area they could look at. But Max Clare is the next best guy. I wouldn't take him at 62. Maybe you just wait and try and get a guy like Oscar Delp later in the draft. Receiver is another area, another position they could look into. But I really like Grayson Halton, and Denver also needs D tackle. New England at 63, they got Cassius Howell at pick 31. Could go tackle here, but Markel Bell doesn't make sense at 63. Could go D-line, but with Halton and Orange off the board, I don't think D tackle's the pick. Could go receiver with Skylar Bell, but again, if you trade for A.J. Brown, you don't need receiver. I think without edge rusher being a need anymore because they went with Cassius Howell, I think their next biggest need is a linebacker. And Anthony Hill was a lot higher on draft boards, like early in the draft process, but he's kind of fallen. So why not take him here at 63? You need linebacker help. Your best linebacker right now is Robert Spillane. He's not a bad player by any means, but you could definitely add guys alongside Robert Spillane. So we're gonna go with Anthony Hill. And then finally, Seattle at pick 64. They got their corner, Colton Hood, with their first round pick. I think this pick is either edge rusher because Gabe Jacas and Malachi Lawrence are available, or I think it's running back with Mike Washington because they obviously lost Kenneth Walker in free agency. But I think you can get solid running backs late in the draft, right? If we look at the running backs quickly, there's Jonah Coleman, Seth McGowan, Emmett Johnson, Nick Singleton. There's a lot of good guys you can get later. I like Mike Washington too, don't get me wrong. But I think when two high second-round edge rushers like Jacas and Lawrence are still on the board, I think you got to take one of them. So I'm going to go with Gabe Jacas out of Illinois to the Seahawks at pick 64. Quick recap of the draft. Here is, I'll just go to this. Let me zoom in. And we'll just scroll through. Feel free to pause at any moment to get a better look at this recap and this 2-round mock draft. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new, and the draft is later today. I think this video is going to come out Thursday, like in the middle of the day, and the draft is at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So the draft is almost here. This is our final official no trade 2-round mock draft, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.